Welcome to Diary of an Unemployed Actor with me, Milo Dennison, where I speak with up-and-coming actors, actresses, and filmmakers about the entertainment industry. We discuss success, failure, and share a few tips to inspire those of you who have a passion for the creative arts. This week, I'm speaking with Chelsea Marie Marlowe. Chelsea is a black belt in multiple different types of martial arts and has experience as a background artist and extra, and she's a opera singer, studied to be an opera singer, so she can sing and do martial arts. And we kind of just talk about a little bit of that, what got her into those fields, and kind of share some tips for people that are also looking about maybe getting into some types of martial arts, as well as background and extra work. It's one of those kind of things that people kind of frown upon. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be a background extra, but there actually are a lot of benefits to doing extra work. And we talk about some of those, some of the experiences that you can have on set that you can learn for when you do get those featured roles. And I also learned a little something about SAG-AFTRA eligibility that I didn't know, as well as a certain role called an intimacy director on a set. So if you want to find out what that is, well, start listening. So let's jump into this. So you're originally from Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you moved to Philadelphia. Was that for work or just personal reasons, or?
So I actually, right out of college, I got an internship at Cape May Stage, which is in New Jersey. And then everybody I worked with there was in Philly. So I didn't really want to go back home once our internship ended. So I came to Philly because it was just kind of in the middle. It was a big enough city that I could get a cheap flight anywhere I needed to go. And it's cheaper than living in New York significantly, and only a 2-hour drive.
How long's the commute from Philadelphia to New York if you need to go in there for work?
If I drive, it's 2 hours.
Well, it's not too bad then.
Which isn't bad. And I think the train's an hour and a half, maybe.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Sorry, I need to tell you, this just reminded me of, I don't know why this reminded me of this, but a friend of mine a couple of years ago went to Philadelphia, and I'm like, yes, you got to get the cheesesteaks. They're famous. And she's like, but I'm a vegetarian. And I'm like, I don't care. You still have to get one anyways while you're there, because that's what they're famous for. And she did not get one and very much let me down.
Aw, sad. There's places making vegetarian ones now, though.
Well, she might have had a vegetarian one, but I'm like, it's probably not the same. Okay, so is there a lot of acting work in Philadelphia then? Is there much shooting there?
So there's a lot of theater work if you're equity. And there's starting to be more film stuff. At least the past 2 years, we've had a solid 3 or 4 things being filmed at the same time. Which has been great. But yeah, when I first got here, it was nothing for me. I don't really do theater, and I'm definitely not equity in theater, anywhere close. So it was definitely hard the first year to 2 years I was here. Okay. And I really was going to New York a lot for stuff.
All right.
So it was nice. It was nice when HBO and Netflix and stuff decided to use Philly.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. So it's good that you brought it up, because you were in Army of the Dead, or you're in Army of the Dead.
Yes.
You're a zombie?
I'm a zombie.
In Army of the, so I know it hasn't come out yet, but that's Dave Bautista.
Yep.
How many days were you there?
So I only did 1 day. Okay. I was asked to come back, but it was a lot. So that was in Atlantic. They actually shot that in Atlantic City, which will make sense when you watch it. Because the whole thing's set in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So they use one of the closed down casinos in Atlantic City, one that's kind of been sitting there unused for 5 years.
Okay.
So it was perfect.
Already had that rundown look to it.
Exactly. And they could keep a ton of people in there, because there was probably 50 to 100 just extras. And in there, it was just a lot. It was because we got there, I think my call was 3 a.m. I want to say we started shooting at 8 or 9 a.m., but I don't know, because they took our phones and we sat in this casino with no clock for in the entire day. We left around, I think, 9 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
So it was psychological torture because you're like in this room with all these people with intense like prosthetics and makeup for no one knows how long. And we were in like the dark, basically. We had like one little light. And it was, so I didn't go back.
So just because it was just such a long day of nothing.
It was just a lot. And for me, like I went because I had that 3 a.m. call. I got a hotel there and then I drove back to Philly that night, like after I left set. It was just a lot for me. I wasn't ready emotionally to be a zombie.
Did it take a lot to get into the prosthetics? Like how many hours was doing that, or were they pretty quick about it?
By the time I got into prosthetics, it was just like minimum. Like we're just going minimum now because it was taking so long. So there were definitely people that at the beginning were in makeup for like an hour. And then once they realized that there were still like 85 extras to do, they were like, no, just minimum. We'll figure it out later.
We'll put those first people in the front. And then as we get towards the end, they're going farther and farther into the back.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. They were like trying to put masks on people. Like, if you could wear a mask, put this mask on. And
nice. It's funny with extra work because it is so much just kind of waiting around of nothing happening, and it gets so boring sometimes depending on the day or what's going on, or if they take your phones away.
I mean, it was horrible. And I understand, I guess there had been an incident when they first started shooting where somebody had taken pictures and posted them, and that's why. So I understand.
Yeah.
I had like a really cushy extra job prior to that, so I was not ready for that one. I did meet some very lovely people out of DC, though, who have been great. Yeah, some lovely SAG extras that I became friends with who have like helped me get other jobs and stuff. So
that's
it
handy.
worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you join SAG through extra work?
So you can get, because you have to get vouchered. So it's so complicated.
Yeah, that's what I was. I know some of the like, for speaking roles and stuff, but I'd never heard. But it kind of makes sense if you do enough extra work,
So basically, I guess the way SAG works is you have to have so many SAG actors on a project. So I got enough vouchers. I have not joined SAG yet, but I have enough vouchers because of dispatches from elsewhere. Which shot in Philly, which was for AMC. Because there were only like 4 main actors on it. So a lot of the days I was on set, there were only like 5 backgrounds. So they were required to give us SAG vouchers. Oh. We were considered SAG extras, even though we're not SAG, because there weren't enough the ratio
actual SAG actors, and so they need to have so many SAG on set. Oh, that's interesting.
So even though all my scenes got cut, everything I was in, you can't see me or my face. I did get all my voucher. I got like 6 or 7 vouchers from that one.
Oh, okay. Are you considering joining, or is there enough SAG work to justify the fee of joining SAG?
I'm conflicted right now. Yeah. I'm in like that. Every time I think I'm going to do it, then somebody tells me, just wait. So, and especially with how the film industry's going right now, it's really hard to decide what to do. So I could do it and I have the money set aside for it, but I'm really waiting for somebody I was told to wait until you get offered speaking roles or something and then do it.
I've basically the same thing is like, it's not really worth it because it's not necessarily going to help you get more work until, so join when you get something that justifies joining. And I've heard the same thing because it's basically you're paying for membership and then not necessarily getting anything back out of it actually. So.
Right. And especially right now when there's no like guarantee that anyone's going to be working. So there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to pay your due the next year.
Yeah, totally.
So
one other thing I really wanted to talk to you about is because you have all this cool martial arts training, and well, because you're like a black. Hold on, I have it up here. It's it's black belt in MMA Aikido. Is that right? Am I pronouncing that?
Agito, yeah.
Aikido, Kendo, like kickboxing, judo, like all this total like badass stuff. Like, first of all, what got you into that? Because you must have been practicing since a very young age to be at that level.
Yes. So I think I'm at like 20 something years of practice at this point. So I started in second grade. When my mom gave up on trying to get me to do dance, because I was like that kid that sat on the stage at recitals and like unwound my dresses. It's actually my mom's favorite story to talk about. I would like I'd find like that one thing that was loose on a dress and just like sit there on the floor while everyone danced around me. So I mean, she found martial arts for me. She just wanted me to do something active. And that was like that American style mixed martial arts was where I started. And yeah, I was in second grade and I black belt tested in fifth grade, I think, from that. And then from there, we found that world's very intense. So I wanted to stay in martial arts, but I didn't want to be in that. So she found this woman who had actually been raised in a dojo in Japan. Like her dad was in the military, so she grew up in Japan and lived in a dojo there and learned traditional Japanese martial arts. And so I started studying with her and I stayed with her until I went to college. And then since then I've kind of practiced on my own, dojo hopped. So that's where a lot of that other stuff comes from, where I've spent like 6 months to a year in one dojo, kind of learning that style and then doing another one somewhere else, just as I've moved around and hopped around.
Is there a lot of difference between the different styles then? Because I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, like a lot of kids, I watched Karate Kid, the movie, and was like, I want to learn karate. So I did that for a while, but then, and then, stopped doing it. So that's all I really know other than what I see on TV and stuff as well. So are there much different styles then?
Yeah. So martial arts is like, it's like languages, and then it's like dialects of languages. So every country kind of has its main martial art, or every region has its main martial art. And then within that martial art, there's all these little spin-offs of that. Here, I've seen, at least in the States, there's it's a lot more of the Taekwondo style or the mixed martial arts, Americanized, showy styles. I competed for a long time, and that's a lot of what I saw competing, unless you went to like international competitions. And then it was very much, traditional styles from people's countries that were there, which is really cool. But yes, it definitely varies.
Does that help? Because you also do like stage combat and that kind of stuff as well. Is that kind of what led into learning a little bit about stage combat and everything?
Yeah. So yes. So the stage combat definitely was one of those things where I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And there's nothing in Philly for me. And I ended up getting in contact with Jacqueline Holloway, who's a fairly well-known stage combat director. So I started studying under her, and it's been fun, but it's hard when you're used to martial. Like, what do you need to do martially instead of what do you need to do that's going to look good and keep your partner safe? When martially, like, the whole idea is, how am I going to kill my partner? But it's been super fun, and I've met so many people through that world, even being someone that I don't do theater. And I love what they do. So it's definitely been fun and an interesting look into that world for me as somebody who doesn't really know it.
It might help on screen at some point, knowing how to make it look good and, as well.
It does help. Even the stunt fighting versus the SAFD theatrical fighting is similar but different. Because in stage combat, you rarely physically touch your partner. In stunts, you touch your partner. You are padded up if you're a guy, and most girls don't get pads because you can't hide them in our costuming.
That's a nice system. Like the guys are like, pad me up, and the girls are like, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
sucks to be you.
well, just based on costumes and stuff, girls do not get pads as much.
They're like, not only do you not get pads, but we're going to put you in heels. There.
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Go. Yeah, that's yes. So, and it's definitely a lot more hands-on. Like you're definitely taking much more of a hit in stunts than you do in stage combat, which is good. Like it reads better for that world, and it keeps you much safer in this world when you're on stage.
Are you trying to get more work doing that in film then? Because I would imagine, because I know here I see listings every once in a while, and they actually say, on-screen combat experience, that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it's a subset that would potentially make you more, make you more like castable in some ways. If especially, I mean, it's America. I mean, every other film is an action film, right?
Right. Yeah. So ideally, yes, I would definitely like to do stunts more than, the background and even just like being a main actor. Just because I enjoy that part of it more. I am 4'11" though. So I am very typecasted in the stunt world.
Okay.
Like I have to be doubling kids for the most part.
Really? So they're like, okay, we need this kid to do stunts, but we can't have a kid do it, so we'll cast her.
Which is fine. It's my height. It's yeah. For the most part, I don't know a lot of current actresses I'd be able to stunt double just because I'm 4'11".
Oh,
which is fine given all the stuff Disney's doing right now. Like Disney's getting ready to do, like they're working on this Percy Jackson TV series, which is all kids and all fighting for the most part. So like there's starting to become more options for me, hopefully.
Well, I guess that's the handy thing about Disney owning pretty much everything nowadays. So there you go. Bonus.
Exactly. Bonus.
I just finished reading it's the Harry Dresden series of books. They did a TV series. It was a mediocre TV series, but anyway, so I just finished reading a couple of the books. There's a whole series of them. And one of the characters in the book is she's a female cop. And she's described totally as you were telling me that. I was like, if they do a movie, they should cast you in this character, because she's described as like, 4'11" or something like that, just like a small blonde girl, but she's also like a total badass. So like the main character, like, she basically kicks the crap out of everybody that, is. So like if they do move, if anyone's listening and you're doing a Harry Dresden movie based on these books, because I know you did the TV series for a while, Chelsea's the person to cast. Is it Chelsea? Sorry, Chelsea Marie Cecelia Marlowe?
Yeah, Chelsea Marie Marlowe is fine.
Do you have Spanish ancestry, or is that middle names?
It's my confirmation name.
Okay.
There's another Chelsea Marie Marlowe that's SAG, that's already currently SAG, and I don't want to change my last name or first name, so I just throw that confirmation name in there. Until somebody tells me I could just use my name.
Yep. Well, that's another, when you register for SAG, you're going to have to pick something.
Exactly. So that's what I'm going with for now.
So with the martial arts, so have you so far gotten much work based on that? Because you've kind of only been like serious about acting for a few years, I kind of take it, or how long have you been kind of really serious about it?
Serious in the film world for a few years, because I feel like I've made like this really weird roundabout way into acting, where most people are like, I'm going to be an actor and that's what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm going to be an opera singer and that's what I'm going to do. And then I was like, that there's no work. So yeah, it's really.
But that will help you out for Disney musicals.
Exactly. See,
even better. Disney, call.
Disney, please. I would cry. Yeah, so I want to say I've been serious about it my whole life, but like when it comes to straight acting, it really has only been the past like year and a half that I've really gotten into, actually taking, straight acting classes and taking, how to audition for films and that kind of stuff and really learning that world of it. Because I was just trying to get into the stunts, and for the stunt world, you don't need a lot of that. And then, COVID happened and stunts were going to be the last thing they were going to really let people do.
Yeah.
So I needed to find my new niche. So even like a lot of the extra work I was doing just to kind of learn how sets work and how the film stuff works. Because I know how the stage works. Because my degree was in opera. So I understood that side. I worked in a few theaters here. So like I understood how they work, but I didn't have any clue how the film stuff worked. So now that I understand that, it was easier for me to be like, cool. Now I need to learn how to act so I can do more there.
I recommend that to people too, because some people are like, I don't want to do extra work, but it does get you on set and you do see how a set works. And depending on who is on set with you, you might be, feet away from some very talented A-list actor.
Yeah.
That if depending on what you're doing, might be able to actually watch them work and see how they do it.
Yeah. And I've gotten really lucky with that stuff.
Did you get to work with Dave Bautista?
No, so I did not, but I did. So Mayor of Easton is an HBO show. It's coming out, I think, in April, the end of April, they just announced. And that one started filming at the end of 2019 and then stopped in 2020 because COVID. But before it stopped, like January and February, I was doing stand-in work on it, which was great because that really was, I was standing in for a little girl who has Down syndrome. So I got to do a lot of standing in and like actually reading lines before she was on set. So I did a lot of line reading with like Kate Winslet and people who, you're sitting there reading lines and really learning from them and kind of having like little conversations with them. And also just watching, even when I was just like sitting while they were, testing colors and angles and stuff, they kept having like project meetings at the kitchen table, which is where I had to sit. And I was, watching them go through the already edited footage of stuff that they've shot and all this stuff and like listen to them talk about it and listen to them talk about why they think they need to reshoot things. So I did get to learn a lot on that set, even if it was only for like a few weeks, which was very cool.
Yeah. And Kate Winslet. So you actually got to sit across Kate with
Kate Winslet? We read lines together.
Oh, that must have been fun. Awesome. Yeah.
And very nerve-wracking. And she probably doesn't even remember it, but like it was a real big deal for me.
I was sure. Yeah. She's probably like another person reading lines as exactly. But, oh, absolutely. She's so talented.
Oh, yeah. And just watching her go through it, even just listen, like, because, when you're standing in, you're just, shoved in a basement somewhere when you're not needed. Yeah. Literally, because we were shooting in a house here. Like we shot like in somebody's home, which was super weird too. So we just like sat in the basement until we were needed. And then someone came and got us from the basement, which is super weird. But yeah, we could hear everything. And it was like very interesting to listen to them take, 10 takes and listen to the different ways they did their 10 takes.
Oh, that's great. That's definitely a worthwhile experience for being on set. One other thing I wanted to ask you about with the stage combat and martial arts training, because I know, like obviously guys are really into this because, they're guys, But I imagine girls might want to get into kind of doing martial arts and stuff. Like, what if you were telling somebody that was like, hey, I want to learn martial arts and maybe get into kind of doing this type of even the acting type stuff? What would you say to them?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think martial arts, I always encourage girls to do martial arts because there were like when I got into it, there really weren't a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But I remember like there was the girl named Christina, and I was like, she's the coolest because she was like the only one. So I always encourage girls, get into martial arts or even just taking self-defense classes, like learn the minimum, see what you like. I know a lot of girls that are getting into stunts through parkour, which is also something that I've done. And I worked at a gym. There's a lot of the girls in the stunt community right now came from the parkour world. So Sydney Olsen's a big one. She's starting to get a lot more work. And a lot of them are also doing what I did, where they did stunts and now they're starting to take acting classes and get into acting from there. And like for Sydney, she's in LA. She grew up in LA. So she kind of had that advantage. And I think she's actually getting into the producing side now, where she like got on a set and got a good gig doing the tag show that I can't think of the name of. And then she's like, wait, this behind the scenes stuff is super cool. So I always just encourage girls, like, if you think it looks cool and you're interested, go do it. Yeah. Even if there's a bunch of boys there, just do it. It's fine. You'll be okay. Because that's how we're going to get more girls into, and even the production side of stuff. Like having been on the back end, I've worked with tons of PAs and maybe 2 girls ever on any of these sets have been PAs. Like if you're into cinematography and you think that's cool, do it. Please. We need more girls on the back end of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially nowadays, because with the whole, movement to really get more women into positions in the film industry, because they are finally being called out for it. Right. I did a film over the summer, actually, and it was kind of a cool production. It was mostly women, and the producer set it up that way. Like, so she wanted a strong female-led film, and the main actress was just this like 10-year-old girl who was brilliant, by the way. So I played her father, and it was funny because she had like my lines memorized, everybody else's lines memorized, and I'm just sitting there struggling just with my lines. It was like,
kids are funny like that. Yeah, I love having kids on set because they do that. They do just memorize everything.
I was so jealous. I'm like, man, did I have that good of memory when I was 10?
That's so funny.
Yeah, but it was nice to see though, because that they really were making an effort to have that in the industry, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, even as a guy, I think it's great. I think it's much more. It should be much more fair that way.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's our time. So
as long as it doesn't hinder me personally getting roles.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
All out there.
Yes. They still need the love interest. They still need the father, apparently, or the tool of a brother, whatever. Exactly. I'll play it. I don't care.
But we need those girls out there, especially in the stunt world. Like there was, I think 10 years ago, we were still wigging guys to stunt double girls.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Crazy. Why? No, it's time. It's time for more girls to get into martial arts and get into parkour and do that. Into the parkour world's definitely, that's something that we're like advocating hard for right now is, getting more girls into it and making it more, equal and friendly.
And it's good exercise. And it sounds cool because you can say parkour.
Exactly. It's great exercise.
Is there anything you've ever said like no to? Like, have you ever received an audition or anything and you're just like, you know what? No, I'm not interested.
Not necessarily. I have definitely received auditions where like some of the feedback prior to it, like, or, got asked to audition for stuff and the description of it was just like pretty thin, like this size, this weight, female, but it was for, something we were doing over Zoom. And I'm like, why do you care what size? Like what I weigh should not hinder somebody getting a Zoom audition. I understand, like, no, I don't. Because even the weight doesn't matter, only your size, like, if you need somebody's sizes for costuming, that makes sense. Like if you already have costumes made or you need to make costumes. But telling somebody like this is the size we expect somebody to be for a role was super weird. And then I went back and looked through and none of the guys' stuff said any of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will say I have seen stuff like that for guys though.
I
Like
have
I
too.
do get stuff. They're like, height or like, how often do you go to the gym? Kind of, like descriptions, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But
And
you're
I feel
right.
like
It is worse for women.
it just, yeah. So I've said no, like I've declined auditions based on stuff like that before. I've not really had anything uncomfortable to say no to at this point. For me, so my mentor, Jacqueline, who I've talked about for stunts, she also teaches consent. She's worked with IDC, which is the oh my gosh, my brain just forgot.
I'd say it, but I don't know either.
It's the intimacy directors.
Oh, okay.
I think she is an intimacy director as well. And I've taken a lot of their workshops and stuff. And that's like their big thing is, learning how to say no in situations where you're uncomfortable. And that no is not a negative word. And it's okay to be like, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe we can try this. So I think for me going into that world, it's not going to be as hard as it is for a lot of girls, just because my, baseline was being taught as an actor, like say no if you're not comfortable. It's okay. You're allowed. And even having more intimacy directors on set, and coordinators on set, which seems to be slowly becoming more popular, is very helpful for people.
Yeah, I've never heard of that as a role. So that's an actual specific role to make sure that everybody's comfortable and all that kind of stuff. That's interesting.
In any type of simulated situation. So a lot of people hear intimacy director and they're like, sex scenes.
Is that required, or is that just kind of on the production to say we want one?
It is slowly becoming more required. It's very new in the world of film. So in stage, it was much more, it started on stage and then it's slowly they're starting to get used more in films as well. And opera would be great if they'd start to use one soon.
Really? But, that's an issue in opera?
Yes, very much so. Opera's very old school still.
Is it just like changing off stage or?
No. So the intimacy directors they're the ones that will coordinate, any sort of simulated acts on stage. So kissing situations where you're sitting, like you would sit with your intimacy director and be like, what are you comfortable with? Well, I'm comfortable with, lips, no tongue, lips, tongue, all that stuff. And your partner would be sitting there too and say what they're comfortable with. And you come with an agreement. And you're like, cool, this is what we're comfortable with. This is as far as things can go. Which sounds crazy that that's a thing. But then you hear like horror stories on film. So, and in other situations. And so I think it's good. I know like Bridgerton used an intimacy director. And I don't know if you've watched it, but like the actual simulation of sex in that show is so well done. And that's why, because it's not a male gaze perspective of what sex is. It's it's two people talking about, well, if I was having sex in this situation, what would it be like? And how can we simulate that the best way with everyone comfortable? So yes, intimacy directing is like super interesting to me. But yes, opera from my perspective and what I've seen is very far behind theater and film with a lot of this stuff. And a lot of that's just, it hasn't had to develop because there's not a lot of new stuff to work with. And then people are starting to come up with new opera works and they're there, but the patrons don't want to see that. They want to see all the old school Mozart. That's what they want to see. And therefore, that's what everybody does. And it has definitely been an issue because I don't know if you've seen opera, but like,
yeah, I've seen
everybody's running around.
That's what kind of made me wonder, because I'm like, I don't remember seeing something in an opera that made me think, oh, that was quite intimate. Maybe I just haven't seen the right ones.
I think people are definitely staging more of the intimacy stuff because they can now. That was definitely there. Like Mozart as a person was like running around like he was a dirty man. And he wrote that stuff into his operas. But even especially, I know a big one that they have been trying to get more of the reasons of getting intimacy directors involved in opera is like my opera knowledge just went out the window.
So but you stop doing it, you move into the acting side, and it's all gone.
God, I haven't stopped. I swear, I still do it, just not as much. It's a show I haven't done a lot. Don Giovanni has a rape scene at the beginning.
Okay,
that does not get done as a rape scene most of the time. It gets done as a maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Like it's always done, and everyone always feels gross and iffy about it by the end of it. Okay. And that's the kind of stuff that people are pushing to have intimacy directors in. But even I did a show in college that I stage managed. We did The Rape of Lucretia, which has a very graphically choreographed rape scene in the middle of it that you have to do because there's singing through the whole thing. Like it's super intense. It's beautiful when well done. And I think my director did direct it very well. Like he was very on top of, but he came from film too. He came from the film theater world before he got an opera. So like we did the whole, we did a closed set when we choreographed the scene, and we checked in at the end of every rehearsal with everybody and stuff. And that's the thing that, from what I've heard, a lot of opera productions are missing. Where they're just like, go for it, see what feels good.
See what feels good. I know you're both just, actors working together in front of a bunch of other people, but it probably feel good.
Something just a really intense thing, and also sing on pitch perfectly. So yeah, for the intimacy directing, like it's great to see it in theater, and it's amazing to see it finally getting used in film.
Yeah.
Just because now I've gone into like shows knowing who was working on it and being able to watch and be like, oh, this is why this feels real and looks good. Because it's not just, directors being go for it or directing based on what imaginary circumstance they like to see played out.
What they're imagining. They're like, whoa, that sounds nice.
That sounds super fun. Even though, it's a not real like at all. So that's my intimacy directing rant.
Well, I think that is a great thing to leave our interview on, is that more sets need intimacy directors.
Yep.
There
and
we
women.
Go. So last question then, social media or whatever, like if anyone wants to find you or follow you, where would they go?
Yeah. So I always push everybody to my Instagram, which is just, Chelsea.m.Marlowe. That's my handle, I think, on pretty much everything. But Instagram is where I post everything. And then I kind of just link out to anything else that I'm doing if I need to.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. It was fantastic talking to you. And that was a lot of fun too, actually. And I learned something about an intimacy director, which I did not know.
Yeah.
So even
great.
more
I'm glad to educate and help.
I will make sure to have one on my next film.
Yes.
I need one.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Chelsea. I really
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.